Welcome back. So now I know how to get the information from the form. Let's actually try and send it to a backend. Now we need a couple of steps in order to do that again. So the first thing I want to focus on is how I would actually make this request to the backend. Let's jump to the backend code and just have a look at how it actually looks right now in order for us to communicate with the backend. And it seems that we made an auth controller, and that auth controller kind of opened up for the path of API auth login right here, which is going to be a post request, and it's going to give us the username and the password. We need that inside the request right here in the body so we can get that information. And the login DTO itself looks something like this. So let's start there. Let's start by just creating the login DTO inside the front end so we can use that to kind of send the data to the backend so they match. I think the DTOs again is a great way to kind of put something in between the front end and the backend so we know what data we need in both areas. So let's go and create a login DTO in the actual front end right here. So I want it under auth, I want it under a shared folder like this. We can just remove that shared folder. We don't need that right now. I'll create it just using the terminal down here. So we'll go and we'll say ng generate and we'll say component, we'll say interface like this. And the interface is going to be under auth like this, auth/shared. And I want the interface to be called login DTO like this. So let's just try and create that file right there, the interface. And if you just open up the auth now, you'll see here's a new file called login.dto. And I just want to get rid of the dot in here in the interface. And there we go. Now we need a couple of things in here. We're going to have a username, and that's going to be of the type string. And we're going to have a password. And notice I'm using lowercase here, even though it's lowercase in the uppercase in the backend. You don't need to use uppercase since this is TypeScript. You use lowercase. So now we have the login DTO for calling our backend. Let's try and jump back to the backend code, because now we can send the data to the backend, but we also need to be able to send something back if this completes as expected from the backend, right? So we also need the token DTO. So let's just go and add that one as well, since we're here anyway. So I'll generate another service right here, or another interface right here called the token DTO. I'll just execute that, and now we have a second interface available. And the token DTO, we need to do kind of the same thing. Get rid of the dot, go in and create a couple of things. I think one of them was called JWT. And again, it's very important that you use the same names right here in the front end and the back end, or else they won't match. So we also need a message here, message, and that's also going to be a string. And there we go. Now we have the token DTO, so we also have a return type if things actually go as expected from the backend. We need one more thing, and that's a service that can call this method right here. So let's go and create that service. So again, ng generate and S for service. It's going to be under the auth shared folder again. So that's where we're going to place it. And I just want to call it the auth service like this. And there we go. Now we have that one available as well. And automatically, since I call it auth, it's going to say auth.service.ts in this case. So there we have the service. Let's keep the spec file so we can unit test it later. And let's actually go into the auth service right here and figure out what we need. In order to start using the auth service, we're going to at least need an HTTP client. So let's just make an HTTP client right here, HTTP, and dependency inject that HTTP client into our code. Now with the auth service available, let's just go and actually create our first method in here called login. We're going to pass in a login DTO from the outside of the type login DTO like this, and we're going to return an observable that's going to be of the type token DTO right here. So it's going to contain that token. Again, this is what we're going to send to the backend. This is what we're going to get back from the backend, hopefully, if everything works as expected. Now with this in place, we can now call and return our HTTP right here, this.http, and we want it to be a post request. Now I know that because if I go back, you'll notice that this is going to be a post request. You can see it right here, and also I put in a comment. So I know it's going to be a post request. Now with the post request in place, I can actually explain what to return right here, and that's going to be a token DTO. The next thing I can do is I can explain where to send the post request, and we already set this up with the environment.api right here. So let's import the environment. And we have an API, and just to see what that is, it's actually just a call to the actual URL right here of the backend, and that's going to change again if we go to production. We already figured that out earlier in deployment. With this API available, we can add a bit more information. We can say /API like this. We want to go to the API. We can say we want to go to the auth, and we want to go to the login. So with this in place, let's try and go to the backend again. You can see that's actually right here in a comment, but you can actually also see it by saying, I know I'm going to go to the API/auth of the controller right here, and I want to go to /login because I have the name of template right here. And that's how that's bound together. Now we also have that available. The final thing I need to do is to call that login DTO, and there we go. Now we actually have the full function right here for us to call a post request to the backend to this URL, passing in the login information and getting back a token. And next lesson we'll try to use that, but that was how easy it was to kind of set up the service in order to start contacting the backend. But we're not using it yet, so we'll do that in the next lesson to kind of actually do the actual login. So see you next time.